Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday, March 9th. Well, the big warm-up that began in the Central Plains a couple of days ago will now shift into the eastern part of the U.S. Looks like it'll be well above normal this afternoon and right through the day on Friday in much of the eastern U.S. And then late in the week, another cold frontal system will drop from the northwest to the southeast across the northeast U.S., across the mid-Atlantic region, ushering in much cooler air for the upcoming weekend. There's certainly some signs of colder air masses next week and going into the latter part of the month of March. But for the next 3 or 4 days, much above normal conditions finally reach the I-95 corridor region of D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Maybe temperatures well up in the 70s by the middle and latter part of the week in D.C., 60 degrees possible today and tomorrow in Philadelphia and New York City. New York City could actually drop a few degrees from this afternoon to tomorrow afternoon because of a weak backdoor cold front. Maybe 60 this afternoon, upper 50s tomorrow, but still well above normal. And then they get even milder again for Thursday and Friday. Let's just do a little quick synopsis of the course of events that are finally bringing this much warmer air mass into the eastern U.S. First of all, about a week ago, there was a very strong high-pressure system that formed way up across Canada. Winds flow clockwise around high, so that promoted a strong northerly flow of air into the Great Lakes, into the northeast U.S., the mid-Atlantic region for the last several days. And it was really a very impressive cold shot for this time of the year in the northeastern quadrant of the nation, with consistent well below normal temperature for maybe as long as 5, 6, 7 days in much of this region. Well, there's a shift in the pattern right now, as this particular high pressure system has now shifted from Canada. It's dropped all the way to the south and east, now over the interior part of the mid-Atlantic region, and soon will be off the eastern seaboard out over the western Atlantic. And again, with clockwise flow of air around high pressure, that has promoted a strong and a long fetch of southwest to northeast winds in the central part of the nation, and all of that southwesterly flow is now shifting into the eastern U.S. on the backside of this high, which will end up over the western Atlantic Ocean over the next 24 to 48 hours or so. So again, depends on the location of that high pressure. First, it started off as a cold source of air for the northeastern part of the nation, but now that it's shifted from Canada all the way to the eastern seaboard, it will promote a big warm-up that really begins in earnest this afternoon in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor, and it will last right through Friday, at which time colder air moves in from the north to the south. Well, before we get to the details of the immediate range, the big warm-up that's coming in the eastern states, let's continue to kind of look ahead here at the prospects for some colder air, not only for this weekend, returning to the mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S., and the Great Lakes, but next week as well, and go through the second half of the month of March. Certainly signs for some cold air outbreaks returning after this big warm-up that's coming from Tuesday afternoon through Friday. First of all, one of the things we'll be monitoring over the next several days is the North Atlantic oscillation. This is an important index, teleconnection index, to monitor during the winter season, especially the latter part of the winter season, really March, even going into the early part of the spring. The NAO becomes quite telling in terms of the potential for some cold air outbreaks into the northeastern part of the nation. Whenever it goes into negative territory, especially for a sustained period of time, that is a good, strong signal for some more cold air outbreaks. And you can see right now it's slightly positive, but there are signs that it tends to drop into the negative territory, at least neutral, going through the next couple of weeks. So this is certainly telling us that there can be some more cold air outbreaks over the next couple of weeks. And indeed, there's other signs that back this teleconnection index up with the strong signal for some colder air outbreaks during the second half of the month of March. Well, certainly another way we can look at some cold air outbreaks is by looking at the GFS model run for 850 millibar temperature anomalies going forward here. This is as we begin the day on Tuesday, and here's the real core of the warmer than normal conditions right now is across the central plains. Again, high pressure now over the nearing the eastern seaboard, right in this region right here, and winds flow clockwise, and that is producing a long fetch southwesterly winds in the lower middle part of the atmosphere that first promoting the warm up in the central plains, but now that's shifting into the eastern U.S. In fact, let's move forward here. Here we are now by tomorrow morning. Notice above normal conditions now extending to the south and east into the southeastern part of the nation, the mid-Atlantic region. And again, at the surface, there may be a weak backdoor cool front that drops a few degrees from this afternoon to tomorrow afternoon in New York City and Boston. Probably not going to have an impact in Philly and New York and D.C., but it remains above normal right into the day on Friday. And here we are now, the Friday morning forecast map. Still 7 degrees possible in D.C., well up in the 60s in Philly and New York City on Friday, but colder air starting to show up here by Friday morning up across the northern plains and the upper part of the Midwest. A cold frontal system ushers in this colder air mass right here for the upcoming week, and I expect high temperatures to be confined to the 40s Saturday and Sunday in places like Philadelphia, New York City, maybe confined to 50 or under by the time we get to Sunday afternoon in D.C. That is a rather short-lived cool air outbreak here, and certainly by the earlier middle part of next week we may get above normal, but as we talked about earlier, there are other signs for additional cold air outbreaks, and here's another one showing up on the maps about a week from now, in the middle of next week. That expands all the way into the eastern U.S. So certainly, there are many reasons to believe that we have additional cold air outbreaks coming into the northeastern quadrant of the nation over the next couple of weeks. Again, that follows a significant warm-up from this afternoon through the day on Friday. Now, can it snow? Sure, there certainly can be some snow in the northeastern part of the nation. It will take a lot of luck and good timing between the arrival of this cold air and some potential moisture. The first chance of some frozen precipitation comes early next week after we get that cool down this week, and there may be a system coming out of the Midwest into the east during the early part of next week, so we'll have to monitor that over the next couple of days. Well, let's now look at the short term, and again, here is the key player right here, strong high pressure over the interior part of the mid-Atlantic right now. This is the same high pressure system that originated up over northern Canada about a week ago and produced a very sustained cold stretch of weather for the northeastern part of the nation, but it has drifted southeastward from Canada all the way into the interior mid-Atlantic region right now, and it will continue to move to the east to the western part of the Atlantic Ocean. Look at this long fetch of southwesterly flow on the backside of that high. Winds generally are run parallel to these isobars right here, and again, that's a southwest to northeast fetch here, bringing warmer air from the deep south all the way up into the northern plains, and that moves into the eastern part of the nation this afternoon and continuing tomorrow, and then it really intensifies. This is the forecast map by Thursday morning. Notice the isobar pattern here in the I-95 corridor region, tightening up as this high pressure system moves over the western Atlantic. Much the same position as what we'll talk about often over the summer season, the Bermuda High. It moves out over the Bermuda part of the Atlantic Ocean on the backside. Strong southwesterly winds in the summer. It brings hot and humid air into the mid-Atlantic region. This time of the year we'll have some well above normal temperatures, especially Thursday into the day on Friday. But here is the beginnings of that cold air shot for the upcoming weekend. A strong cold front pushing into the upper part of the Midwest by the time we get to Thursday morning. Could produce a few showers. It doesn't look like a heavy rain event by any means on Friday in the mid-Atlantic region, but a couple of showers possible with that cold frontal system. That changes everything in terms of the flow of air. That southwesterly flow of air over the next few days will be replaced by back to a northerly flow of air with cold Canadian high pressure situated over the Great Lakes on Saturday morning. Look at that, northerly winds, northwesterly winds, and again, high temperatures will drop from the 60s and 70s on Thursday and Friday back to the 40s, certainly the 40s in Philadelphia and New York City by the time we get to Saturday afternoon and Sunday as well. And here's that storm system we'll have to monitor for, first of all, for the weekend. It looks like it could be a Rocky Mountain special. Watch out in Denver. The Rocky Mountains of Colorado could experience some substantial snow during the upcoming weekend with this cold air outbreak and a storm system that will develop over the middle part of the nation. Eventually, by the early part of next week, that sends some moisture into the Mid-Atlantic region, into the northeast U.S. We'll have to monitor that because there may be some cold air, lingering cold air from this weekend's outbreak to cause at least the possibility of some frozen precipitation and higher elevation, maybe interior sections of the northeast U.S. early next week we're talking about. So for the next several days, we have a big warm-up coming into the eastern U.S., especially noticeable this afternoon and right through the day on Friday. But then a strong cold front passes through the Mid-Atlantic region Friday night, ushers in a colder air mass for the upcoming weekend. No doubt it'll be colder on Saturday and Sunday in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City compared to Thursday and Friday. And then we'll have to watch for some moisture that could come from the Midwest into the eastern U.S. and Mid-Atlantic region early part of next week. Watch out for a potential snowstorm this weekend in the Colorado Rockies as a cold air outbreak combines with a developing strong storm system over that part of the nation. That's it for now. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.